I just had like a fleeting thought, and I was wondering if it could very quickly go back to the point around like what men can do to find connection, or to find to find a connection, just navigating loneliness, isolation more broadly. I touched on therapy, but therapy isn't always accessible for everyone. So I don't want to pretend that's the only thing and it's the only helpful thing, because it's not. You can do a straight up Google search and find a bunch of things that are recommended that are quite general. But some things that I think can be helpful. Um, this one might sound a bit weird because you often made of it on your own. But I think like just doing things that genuinely do bring you joy, that might be a little bit like different. I feel like everyone's got a little bit of that in them. For example, I love to go plane watching. I often do that on my own. There's a really cool spot in Heathrow Airport where you can just go plane watching. It's great. Whenever I go, I do genuinely feel really good in myself. And I know we're talking about isolation and connection, but I don't think connection necessarily has to always mean like connecting with others in like ideally, yeah, it would be like a shared space, community, connecting with others, and that is profound. But I do think it like often starts with ourselves, like just feeling um more connected to ourselves, like what brings us a little bit of relief and a bit of joy, a little bit of happiness. It might be going for a meal and treating yourself to a meal in your favorite restaurant. It might be like rubbing your cat's belly, which I do like every day. That was I just wanted to say, because I think like
Yeah.
things like therapy and um, other things you might Google and find around like what can help with loneliness, like peer support groups, they are great, but like people need different things at different times, and some things will be more helpful than others. So I just wanted to go back to that quickly, because I didn't want it to sound like therapy is the only good thing. It's not.
Yeah.
There's other stuff too. Yeah.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. And I think that that's important because that's always a perspective that we also highlighted, Seize the Light, believing that one good connection starts with you. You need to get to know yourself first, because if you don't know yourself, you can't really then be in connection with others. But also getting to know yourself, because exactly what you said, what do you like? Because then that can be a springboard to then, finding a club that likes the same things and then building connection. But if you don't know yourself, then you're kind of going into the world kind of aimless. So I do definitely believe in that alone time. But I do sort of think within the mindfulness space, men, because I think are ruled, well, I think I know that this is a general, probably making a general sweeping statement when I say this, are very much ruled by logic. So they do find it very woo woo when you say you literally need to sit with yourself and get to know yourself in the silence. For them, I think it's a concept that they don't really understand, or maybe they don't want to understand. I don't know which one it is. But I think that that for me is, I would say, like, to solve the male loneliness, it would be them first sitting alone, getting to know themselves, and then you can come out into the world. Because, in one hand, it's also not fair to go out into the world broken and expect other people to fix you. That's also not fair. And whether that being professional help or community or family, everybody expects a level of what have you done for yourself to some
Mm,
degree. You have to
mm,
also help yourself to some degree. But I think with a lot of what I've found in researching this topic, men are sort of painted as being quite helpless and victim. I can't necessarily see what are the practical self-help things that are being recommended. Just last point before I hand it over to you.
mm,
I also find it interesting that in a lot of these social groups that have been constituted in London, most of them are female. And in my mind, I do think, like, where are all the male groups? Why aren't, like, you mentioned now you love plane watching. I don't know why you don't have a plane watching male group, because you probably find that other men actually would come. But I don't know why it's weird for men to be, I don't know, friends with each other, seen in public together. I don't know. Or maybe they think past a certain group, being in a group is weird. And the reality is now that I think because family dynamics have changed and we're going into parenthood a lot later, there isn't now that I would say, I wanted to say, like, it's like I'm looking for this particular word, but for example, like when a man would become a father, he would then get assimilated into that family sort of structure and go straight into fatherhood. So maybe that's why we're having this a loneliness epidemic now, because that's now being delayed. So now there's this gap period of what do you do when you're no longer studying, you're working, but you're not a father. And I think maybe that's the difficulty in navigating this new identity.